you very much. Oh boy, 9 years. Wow. I don't mean to date myself. I mean date myself in time, not date myself like go out with myself. That would be weird. Well, I mean anything goes nowadays. All right, so all right. Last week I saw the new Alien movie, Alien Romulus. It's the 7th installment in this 45-year franchise. 9 if you include the AVP movies, Alien versus Predator. For those who don't know, this franchise started in 1979, that right here. And essentially what happens is there's a group of humans that are come in contact with an extraterrestrial that's very dangerous, and they have to survive, right? Despite their technology and their equipment, and just the fact that it's in the future, you would think we'd have a leg up, they are completely outmatched. And they must kill the alien or get rid of the alien to survive. Now, while this is happening, a powerful corporation wants to obtain the alien, not kill it, for its own kind of capitalistic goals. It would appear that the military-industrial complex will outlive us all. But what I find fascinating about the new movie is that it's the 9th in a franchise, 45 years old, and somehow, despite everything in this movie that we've seen and heard before, it still feels very refreshing, right? Most of you have seen this image, if not the movie itself. Sigourney Weaver in 1986 in the second Alien movie. This is what I saw last week. Most of you know this image from the Alien 3 movie in 1992, even if you haven't seen the actual film. This is what I saw last week. And it's fascinating because when I think about cinema and I think about art in general or our lives in general, I think about things that change and things that remain and what makes them remain and what makes them not. There are movies that came out in 1979 that were very similar to Alien and that no one knows about to this day. There are movies that tried to copy Star Wars for the next 10 years after 1977, and none of you have ever seen them, and none of you probably should see them because they're exactly what you would expect from a knockoff. But I think Alien Romulus is this really great case study in cinema. Everything you've seen before, and yet you still feel very refreshed by it. So I suppose I could have ice cream for the rest of my life if it is in fact delicious and refreshing. However, I find it difficult to say what this headline of this lecture is going to be. I mean, we know the subject matter, right? We're going to be talking about ritual. But it's too fundamental of a title, and everything just is, right? How often do you have to do a thing to be a thing, and is a thing because it was doing something, right? So let's do a little background, right? This is me. For the sake of a thirst trap, I picked this photo as well. The story could have been told with one image, but I was a track and field athlete. I don't compete anymore, but I like to think of myself as still an athlete, right? Something that I did define me, but it's not how I identify myself now. Growing up, I also played music. I sang in a couple of bands and played guitar and piano. Got to record professionally for a little bit when I was a teenager. That was a huge blessing. But I don't necessarily do that now. And I don't really identify myself as a singer or a guitar player or a pianist, or as a band leader with wearing sunglasses all the fucking time. I just now realized that. The only pictures that I have picked for that. Anybody know Austin's Coffee? This is actually at Austin's Coffee 15 years ago. They have not changed one bit. Something that has remained. All these other venues are now gone. This is at home. But these other venues have now gone, and which is actually really sad because I have very fond memories of being there and going there very frequently at the time. I also like to make things, and I also like to make things happen. So, and every once in a while you get, acknowledged for them, which is really great. This is actually an Iron Man gauntlet that I built, and then a chess piece that I got to show off, another opportunity to kind of take my shit off on television. So, really keeping that character going after all these years. But as Victor mentioned, I also host a little thing called Nerd Night. And Nerd Night essentially is a regular event where we get to bring together guest speakers where they can nerd out about something they're passionate about. We have Nerd Nights all around the world, and I've been fortunate enough to host Nerd Night here in Orlando for the last 11 years. But we also get to do special events at places like South by Southwest, and we get to work with the Smithsonian Magazine at this Features Here Festival in DC. So it's really been like a really nice treat to do something that for me is very personal and very singular to this community, but also the same in other places with their own ideas of what it should be. And it's been really a treat. This is kind of a collection of things that I wanted to show you all because no other city does this. One of the things that I love about Nerd Night is that you can very much see like what it's like to give different people a script and have them direct their own movie from that exact same text. No other city like has these kind of like, we recognize our speakers over a period of time, wear costumes and build stuff and just acknowledge that we've been doing it for every year, an anniversary. They just have a really cool event, you know, charge money to people to be there, get drunk, and then everybody has a good time and they go home. And that's it. But for me, it's like there has to be a level of community somewhere in there. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit later too. I also like to make my own movies. And I think that there's something interesting about cinema where like, although I've done different things in my life, and I know the first couple things that I showed you that I've done, they may seem like totally separate things, and sports and music and building stuff and activism with the bike share program. But there's a through line to all that, and it's not just, the common denominator is not just me. There's more things to it. But cinema is very interesting to me, and it always has been for this particular reason, that it's always been this great conglomerate of different art forms and different skill sets and artisans. Like literally anybody, no matter what your job is, you could be hired by a film studio. That role that you play within your career, whatever that career is, whether you're somebody who builds sets, whether you're somebody that performs, whether you're somebody that writes stories, whether you're an accountant, like every job is required to make a movie. Maybe not my small little tiny movies on the farm here. I just require a beautiful location, a pretty animal, and great wardrobe choices. So thank you. But I've also been able to do a little bit of acting, and I also find that really fascinating, being able to be in someone else's direction where it's not always a collaboration. Sometimes it's, you know, top down. So I been fortunate enough to do some acting in commercials and ads and things like that, and got to do a movie with Amanda back in the day, and she's really sweet, and I got to meet her dad, and he's a big environmentalist, so that was cool to kind of nerd out about that with him. But then something weird happened where I liked doing something and then it just kind of kept happening. Where I got casted as a cop in this pilot that actually got canceled. It didn't even air actually, so that sucked. Because back then, you know, if it doesn't air, you don't see anything. You know, you don't even know what it looked like. You know, unless you took a selfie, and you know, I had a flip phone, so back then. But that went well. So then I did a cop again. And then I did a cop again. And then, mind you, these two performances are 13 years apart. Still swag, so that's cool. But it's interesting to see what remains very unintentionally and what changed. And my first thought when doing it was like, yay, a job, you know, but then I was like, you know, I can do more things, you know, like I think about myself, I think about my community and things that I've been through, and I'm like, I don't want to just be this one thing, you know, I want to show, you know, usually with actors, you're so hungry to perform, you want to show you can do all these different things, and then sometimes forget the joy of just being able to do a thing, which is wonderful. So I want to go back even farther with you all and tell you a quick little story about how my journey kind of began. When I was 10 years old, my grandmother, who I refer to as my first best friend, she gave me a camera. It was a little Minolta picture camera that I used to kind of do like stop motion, but I had nothing to really kind of move them, so I just kind of made them into like a picture book, which is what you do with drawings, and just flip them. Now there were only like 60 photographs, so it was like a 3-second film. And I would do that for my toys and stuff, and like have like the turtles team up with Barbie. I was doing like team ups before the Avengers movies. And they would like hop in the car and drive off. There was never a villain. There was never like a plot. There was just like, they came together and went somewhere. And then, which, that's kind of how my movies are now. My movies make no money, they make no sense, and there's nothing to do in them. It's just a certain feeling. And I realized recently that started years ago, that idea of taking photographs of toys just existing, just being themselves, not changing over a period of time, just existing. And I couldn't find any photographs of that era of like when I first got them. And I was telling Anna about this the other day, how I used to use my baby sister as like Godzilla. It's the only time I ever had like a thing to do where I'd set the toys up like a city. And then she would come in, she was like 1 year old, and I'd walk her through it, and it would just be photographs. And she would stop, and I would cut it all together, and it'd just be like, which was really cool. I was brilliant at editing at a very young age. But I couldn't find any photographs of that, so I just took some cute photographs of me and my grandmother and put those here. So. The one quick note that I want to talk about too is about her, is that I never called her my grandmother until she died. Because when she was alive, she was very concerned about the way she looked. And she thought she was beautiful, and she was. And she didn't want people to know that she was a grandmother, because that would just mean that she was just old. And I think I think she was maybe 49 or 50 when I was born. So you're kind of at that midlife kind of moment where you're like, am I this other person now that I'm older? What changes, what remains? And I remember being about 3 years old, and I think I might have just heard someone say, your grandmother said to do this, or some like grandmother like nickname, whatever nicknames we were using in our circles. And she looked down at me and was like, don't call me that. You're gonna call me Ma when we're in public. And I remember just stuck in my head. And from that moment until the day she died when I was 18 years old, I never called her that. So it was weird. It's weird to refer to her even now as like, oh, my grandmother, but it was like, oh, I just had 2 moms. And I would say Ma to this one lady and then Ma to this other lady. People thought that my moms were lesbians. And which in New York is like totally cool. It's like, yeah, cool, yeah, you're lesbian moms. I'm from New York, by the way, and I moved here when I was in middle school. But yeah, it's that story kind of started with her, the idea of just kind of being a thing and not necessarily changing so much over time. And I didn't realize until recently how that experience with her and that experience as a kid with my toys and my sister has really kind of been this through line to a lot of the things that I do as an adult. When I first, this is not just photographs of me, this is not like a Ricardo Williams photo album, there's a point to it, I swear. I was thinking about like the camera, right? And what that means as a tool, as an artist, right? In my head, there's already a movie. Right? I've already made the whole thing in my head. I see the whole thing in my head before I even put a pen to paper or put my hands on a device to even capture something. And then it makes me feel like, is there something that I'm expressing or is there something that I'm capturing? Now, granted, the camera can literally do both things, or maybe they're doing both things at the same time. But as an artist, am I looking at this tool as a way to express myself or capture something? Now, I think of it in terms of that realization I had about my grandmother. I think about it in terms of being a child. Like, I think I was an artist right here. I think I was an artist there. Now, I don't remember this moment. I don't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, the outfit is pretty, I'm pretty sure my mom picked it out. But I think I was an artist there because I was expressing myself unbridledly, unrelentlessly. There's nothing that could be told to me to tell me what to do. Like, I'm not concerned about the consequences. I'm not concerned about the outcome. I'm concerned about just being. And I try really, really hard to do that in moments like this. But as an adult, there's a challenge because there are rules. There are a certain set of organized things that have to happen for this to be accomplished. I can see this in my head. The person behind the camera can see that in their head. We have to first come to a meeting on what it should be, and then we both have to figure out how to make it happen. Whereas as a child, every moment is magical. I have to put in man hours to make magic here, and it is really challenging. So I want to take this all the way back. I know we're a tree growing out with a bunch of branches right now, but I want to bring it all back to something I thought recently. What does the word ritual mean? I thought about it a lot from the moment we had a conversation about me doing this, and I've literally spent days thinking about it, just thinking about what that moment has meant to me, or what that word has meant for the work that I do, the person that I am, and the person that I want to be. So I did what any self-respecting person would do, is put it into Google and let the AI think for me, right? And I saw these set of images, and they were kind of daunting at first. It was like, wow, fire and spells and women praying about how men suck or something. I don't know. It's like, kill all the men. You don't call me on that, sorry. Sorry. But however, though, despite the strongness of the imagery here, I did see a pattern. And it takes me back to what I was thinking about earlier about how I see the work that I do. So the pattern here is community, right? There's people. The pattern here is literally a pattern. There's something that happens more than once, consistently, over a period of time, or over a space. And you see that here as well. This is kind of a sidebar, and I just thought about this as I was saying this. I remember talking to a woman who identified as a witch years and years ago. And we were having this debate about spells and magic. And I have this very science fiction, fantasy kind of view of all that stuff. And she was saying that it doesn't matter if you think it's real or not. It matters the commitment to it, right? That's why you have a coven of people, and they all do the same thing, and they chant the same thing, and they work to a certain thing. And if they all work together, that commitment of the thing makes the thing happen, presumably, right? And I started to think, at that moment back then, that that's no different than what I'm doing. I'm getting a bunch of people to come to a thing and believe in it and do it. And I'm like, I guess I'm a witch too. This is so, wow. But I just remember that interaction as this moment. I didn't plan to say that, but anyway, there is a pattern here, and it is a pattern, right? And I isolated those. I highlighted these couple images because I love what this invokes. Like the visceral reaction is like, but then when you think about it more and give it some time, there's something that's actually very familiar to what we're all doing, or what some of us hope to do. So the next thing about that was, okay, well, what is the use of that ritual and that pattern or that community within the art that I create, right? And I started to think about art history and all these other things. And I picked this one to show you because it's very famous, right? It's very easy to know what this is. For those who don't know, I don't know what to tell you. So I'm kidding. This is the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel and Michelangelo's piece. And there's a big debate nowadays about why don't we have these types of large-scale, beautiful, artistic pieces all around the world anymore. Like they're all hundreds of years old, and we're trying to protect them, right? As the world changes, we're trying to hold on to them. And the big answer is power. Art is literally power. This was commissioned by the church. Some guy didn't say, I want to paint the ceiling of this chapel. Someone paid him a lot of money to do it, and he was able to make so much money doing it that he spent like a decade doing it. Like, can you imagine being paid 10 years like that to do something? No, you're like, hopefully that you can keep your job for the remainder of the season, right? Or maybe your contract goes for a few months. Like, this was an investment and the amount of power that it holds. And what is the story that it's trying to tell? This is a faith-based story, right? This is God and man. And I started to think, okay, well, the reason why we don't have those kind of things anymore is because regular people don't necessarily have that power, and they're not being given the power to create that art in a large scale anymore, because there's no reason to. Why would you hand over power to people that are essentially could be your opposition, right? If you go even further, and we're going to more recently, this is art, right? This is power. This is a recruiting tool that could still be effective to this day. I mean, literally, I go to Halloween parties and people are still doing this. They're still dressing up as Rosie the Riveter, and for what it means, what it represents, the empowering feeling that it had. But this was created kind of like, it's become this symbol, but this was created as a tool for power, using art as power. Art is power. Oh, yeah, I guess. Just thought of that now. But anyway, so I think about how the things that we are doing play a role in the things that we create. and the things that have been created for us that are shown to us, like these artistic images that of the past and what role they played in our society. And I know these are a lot of big ideas that I'm trading in, but it's going to come to a point, I promise you. So I started to think about the things that I create. And I made a movie last year that I'd like to show you a trailer for. And I think it has all those things without even me thinking about it. And before I preface it, I want to say this. Whenever I play a movie, the first thing that happens afterwards is people want to talk to you about the movie. And one of the first questions is always, what does it mean? Why did you do this? And as much as I love talking about movies, that's like my favorite thing to do, literally, I don't like to talk about that, because I think it was T.S. Eliot that said, you know, if I could have said it a different way, I would have said it that way. I said it this way because that's the way that I want to say it. There's no reason to, now I'm paraphrasing, to translate it back, right? And as I said earlier, cinema is the biggest art conglomerate. So many people, when you look at the credits of a movie, thousands of people work on a movie. Now granted, their work may not be as prevalent as, you know, Angelina Jolie or, you know, some big writer or director or whoever, like, but they're still contributing to this work of art. They've helped make it happen. And when I think about my work, I'm doing a lot of the jobs because I don't have the same type of power and resources and money that in order to make the Sistine Chapel. But I'd like to think that it's just as effective. So I'm going to show you a clip of this. I don't think we have, I'm just going to turn it up a little bit so we don't have large sound. It's only about 45 seconds. And then let's make sure that sound is, oh, I was using the wrong computer to control the volume. Did you see that? Yeah. Just gonna, she was like, I saw you cut your eye at me, so. That's a different one. All right, so here we go.
子供、狭いようで大きい世界。あなたがいて、みんながいる。自分の居場所を探すんだ。でなければ、何に、誰と合わせるのか。どこへ行くのか。何になるのか。いつも時間ばかりが過ぎていく。捕まって。この人気社会で誰かを信頼することは難しい。捕まって。捕まって。
So I'm not going to tell you anything about that. I'm just going to play the next thing. But I will say I really do love those animals, and they really showed up. Like, they came to set knowing their parts, so it was really great. So, which is rare. Sorry, hold on one second. Just want to... she says she doesn't know where to park. Okay, let's she was just texting me. All right, so I'm going to play this movie as well. This trailer as well. These are two separate films. One is completed. One is currently being worked on. Hopefully, we'll finish that very soon. This is the one that's being worked on. Today's a pretty big day, right?
It's a big day. Every day's a big day, but this day is a little bigger than most.
What time do you normally get up in the morning?
The latest that I try to get up, try is a keyword, is 7:25. Today was a little earlier because I had a hair appointment at 7:45.
Are there any days that aren't big days?
I wish.
I'm not going to tell you anything about that either. But what I will say is the first movie is a bit more physically personal, right? That is, for me, is more about expressing a certain feeling. And traditionally when I make movies, I'm not concerned with any other audience member but myself. I'm not concerned about how people are going to perceive it or what they're going to think about it. I'm only thinking about how do I take my set of feelings and ideas and express them, right? And I want to say something too, that in terms of the first trailer that I showed you, that just to show you what it looks like, there's a lot of imagery there, and of course the dialogue is in Japanese. Not the entire dialogue in the actual film, but the imagery is important because the imagery represents feelings, right? They represent ideas, and ideas, a set of ideas, essentially amount to a system, a ritual system. And what I believe the best way to portray those ideas is through those sets of systems. And yet you have a movie like this that's totally different. It's more about capturing, right? Using the camera as for the opposite tool, not necessarily to express myself, but to take in what I see. And again, these are things that could be a two-way street, but this is where I'm genuinely concerned about what the audience thinks, right? You have a figure that has an audience, so you want to satisfy that existing audience, not to satisfy myself. So before I close, I just want to show you something that I found fascinating that I didn't really think about until recently. I saw this poster a while back, and I've never seen the movie. I know it's by Oliver Stone, I believe. Yeah, Oliver Stone, one of his earlier movies in the 70s. Just saw the poster, and when I was working on my movie, that stayed with me. I never saw the movie. I just saw the poster laying around. And then I thought about a movie that I have seen that I didn't remember the poster at all. And then I realized what I was doing, like after the fact, which is so fascinating to think about. Like, did I copy these people? Did I steal their ideas? Or are these a set of systems that are created that essentially become a ritual for all creative people, or just out there, you know? You know, there's stories about like comics like being drunk at a stand-up show and hearing a joke when they're messed up or whatever, and then saying the same joke, you know, somewhere else, and then they're like, oh, well, I honestly don't remember hearing it, but you did hear it, you know? Is it now yours? Does it belong to you? In art, if you change something, does it now belong to you? If I take an Obey poster from Shep Ferry and change one little marker or put on his face in it instead of Obama, is that art now belong to me, or does it belong to him? What changes, what remains, and what do we do to remain ourselves in the midst of all of this? So thank you all. I hope you learned a little bit about me, but more importantly, I hope we learned something about each other, and I guess I'll take a few of your questions if you have them. So.
All right, if you want to go raise your hand, ask any questions,
Oh, don't be shy, I'm not.
I can start actually if you'd like.
Yeah.
So you're so eclectic in what you do. How do you manage your time and everything that you're doing? Like, you have these projects, and then you have a nerd night, and then you have the other stuff that you do. Is like, where's your focus most of the time?
The first word that came to mind is I don't. I used to be very good at time management, and then I think the world kind of imploded on itself, and I just was trying to, you know, I realized much how I think about, I'll say this, I've never been more comforted than being in the movie theater on anything. Everything feels better to me when I'm there. And when I walk out of a movie theater, the first thing I can think of is my head is spinning, even when a movie I don't like, right? My head is spinning on these ideas and feelings. There's movies that I've seen where I can't stand them, and yet they have me thinking about something continuously throughout the week sometimes. What I realized very early on when making art and enjoying it, and experiencing it, actually, experiencing more so than enjoying it, because sometimes I don't enjoy it, is that it's not a puzzle to unlock, but rather an experience to be had. And I used to be very good at time management. I was one of those guys where you know, the image of like the political staffer with the BlackBerry doing this clicking like that, was definitely that kind of person for a very long time. And then I realized that I don't necessarily have to be trying to form the world and more just kind of living through it. And the pandemic actually helped with that a little bit. I was in that mindset before, and then the world kind of stopped. And I realized, oh, this is great for me, like as a person, bad for the world at large, but it was really fascinating to look at how I managed things. And there were things that I was able to let go of that I was holding on to so tight. And that has helped me manage. Like when I was doing more things and getting more things done, outside looking in, it would seem like, oh, you're very managed, but I mean, I was an absolute mess. Now that I've learned to, you know, loosen that grip and just let things, you know, go, I feel like I'm much better at managing by not managing. Does that make sense? You know, like instead of trying to bend the river to my submission, I just kind of flow through it. You know, it's easier to swim that way, particularly if you're, you know, in a strong current. And I'm using a lot of visual imagery and analogies, but I'm grasping at things to find the right answer because I want to be able to connect, to communicate what I'm feeling in the moment. But or I'll just make a movie about it. Whatever we're talking about now, I'll just make a movie about it, and then watch the movie in a year, and then that'll answer Victor's question. No, I'm kidding. Doing less helps. Doing less, that's the short answer. And doing things that like really like motivate you to want to do them. I also realized that I was also doing a lot of things that like, I believed in them, but I wasn't really happy doing them, if that makes sense. Like I believed in what they could accomplish and what their outcome would be, but you know, I was like, oh God, it was miserable, you know, and then you're just kind of like putting on that like happy face. It's like I'm painting on a Joker makeup every day. I'm like, I'm great, everything's great, you know? And it's like, it's not. I'm like, I'd rather be watching The Minions, you know? Which is such a good movie. Have you seen Despicable Me 4? Oh my God. 6 movies into that franchise, it's 4 Despicable Me movies, 2 Minions movies, and it's still, the momentum is still going. Like, I still love it. You know what I'd really like to see? I'd like to see a live action short film where Steve Carell shaves his head and does the voice. And I keep thinking to myself, who would they get to be the Minions? Would they do it like the live action look animation, like The Lion King, where they just like look real, but they're not, which is very soulless and disconcerting. Yeah. And there was this viral video that went out recently, and mind you, I already follow these people on social media, but the voice actors who do the Italian dub, because you know the Minions are actually speaking like a gibberish Brazilian Portuguese accent. It's really the Portuguese language, but they like change things about it and, you know, just to make it like funny. And the Italian actors dub that, and they do all the characters. So they do all the Minions and the human characters, and it's the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in my life because they just weave in and out of these characters, and they just kind of create a weird Italian gibberish that's also the actual language for the characters. It's so incredibly creative, but it's not something that it's their own ideas. It's like they're just looking at something, capturing something, and then just expressing themselves. And it's this beautiful, seamless line. And I just was watching it over and over the other day, like, how do they do that? And I actually sent a clip of it to Anna, actually, the Minions, yeah. Yeah, so I thought it was so funny. I'm like, I need to share this. You know when you get something funny and you just want to share it with somebody else? And it's like, most people that I know are just kind of like, I've already seen it. I know that Anna hasn't seen it because she's working all the time. So I can send it to her because it's like, it's not like, for her, it's like the first ha-ha. For them, it's like, ha-ha, what the fuck? Yeah, sorry, I hope that answers your question.
And actually, I have a follow-up question here, just real quick. You said you're most comfortable in the movie theater. Where do you feel you're most creative? In front of the camera, behind the camera, on stage somewhere?
In my head.
In your head?
Yeah. I mean, I can disassociate anywhere. I mean, I can just zone out it's like, you know, like there's the joke about the sumo wrestlers that they don't actually feel anything because their mind is somewhere else. So they can just keep fighting and fighting and fighting with all that weight and movement and stuff. And, you know, their mind is like on a cloud somewhere, you know, just totally zen. But for me, it's like, when you do all those types of things, you have to have a kind of a private place. And I do have like physical locations that I can like go to, but like even in my head, I just kind of step through that door, and I can do that very easily. And that's the one thing that has remained since a child. I mean, I can just kind of go there any place. I've gotten better at like not using tools to do that. Like I needed the kind of like physical comfort. I remember being about 8 years old, and I used to have to stay after school for like different clubs and that kind of thing. And like because my parents worked a lot, it wasn't always somebody to pick me up. So it's like, okay, well, if school lets out at like 3 and then you have the thing afterwards, you get out at 5. Well, both parents are still at work. They're not gonna be until 7. So I have to stay at school an extra 2 hours. And it's just kind of like, in my head, I'm like writing all these crazy stories and stuff and space characters and all this stuff. And it's like, well, I would forget them at the time and I needed to write them down. And I remember my mom gave me a notebook and it was just kind of like, it was like the Holy Grail. It was like God came from heaven and was like, here you go. And I was like, oh, now I can remember all the things that I'm thinking about. This is so crazy. This is the best gift ever. It was never a moment like, oh, a notebook. It was like, that was the notebook. It was like huge. And then I went back and bought like 100 more. So I had like, my room was just full of notebooks and books and toys and like the toys were like the performers and the books were like every idea I ever had. But in terms of like specific performances, I love just making my own movies. And this is something I do talk about a lot with my friends. And actually another conversation we had the other day was, I hate being in LA because I fall into this trap of trying to be like everybody else trying to make it. Even when you're lucky enough to get like a small job, and mind you, they're all below the line. It's not like, you know, I'm not like in the title or something like that. It's like things that like people probably didn't even see and you're probably gonna forget about. Like I literally forgotten all the things that I've done. But I don't like falling into that trap of somebody trying to make it because it doesn't feel fulfilling to me at all. I mean, it's great if you can. I would love to do whatever the fuck Tom Cruise is doing. Just seeing the output, I'm like, that looks so amazing. I would love to do that. But also like, it's a trap because you're not necessarily doing what you want to do to get to that point. Making my own movies, as hard as that is, I love it so much. Like I'll just show you this image. Going back, well, there's a lot of pictures of me here. This was like so fulfilling to get, and it was really hard because I had a family location that I was using for a farm, and it wasn't really working. So I just like reached out to a bunch of different friends who I knew lived on farms like all over the country, California, Texas, Nebraska, and I'm just trying things out. And then randomly I was talking to somebody and she was showing me like some pictures and like, I was like, wait, what's that in the background? She goes, that's my dad's farm. Where is that? And it was like DeLand or something close. I'm like, I was here the whole time. And it just so happens they also had Farona, the horse as well. And I'm like, I need a horse too, this is so perfect. And like, just like, it took so long to get to that point, just thinking about the ideas. And then I was like, but when I got it, it was like, God, this is perfect. And me and my friend Morgan went out and we shot there just for a few hours and we got it. And it was like magical. Like this was like between 5 and 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. And it was just great. And, you know, Morgan, you know, Jim knows, he's worked with her for many years, and Morgan's great. You know, she shows up with the tech, I show up with the outfit, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna be here, we're gonna be here, we're gonna be here. And we just nailed it. We had time, the sun was still up, you know, but we still had time for dinner and jokes. And, you know, I think I might've watched a couple cartoons afterwards, and it was really awesome. And then drive back and, you know, we're in bed by 11 p.m. So it was awesome. So I'm most fulfilled in the role where I'm able to create things that I, you know, see in my head. You know, my level of like satisfaction is how can I take something that I've seen very clearly in here and make other people see it as clearly as I see it there. And sometimes it's a percentage marker, right? It's a spectrum. You know, like they can kind of 80% see it, they can kind of 90% see it. But just the closer you get to that 100 every time is just like, and this was very close. And it just was a magical moment, you know, so. I'm sorry, you had a question as well, yeah.
Well, so we can tell that you have lots of things going on in your head, and there's lots of energy and directions in which you go. I wonder, are there any rituals that you have that you do on a daily basis or weekly, anything on a regular basis that kind of grounds you?
I'm not sure I should share all of that with you, but I will say, yeah. I will say this. The process to which how I make my own movies changes every time. And I didn't realize that until recently either. I'm having all these really wonderful kind of like post-pandemic kind of reflections. And I realized that the process can sometimes be like, I have an idea, I start building it out in my head, and I build it out really a lot before I even write it down. I'm just thinking about it every day, and living those situations. I'll even put on the clothes, I'll see the clothes in my head, get the clothes, and just wear the clothes for days. And that actually happened to me with this particular outfit, and I remember getting laughed at in Orange County quite a bit. Like, oh, the cowboy's here again, you know, it's that kind of thing, and which was fine. I mean, if you think I'm a cowboy, I'll be a cowboy, yes. the process changes a lot. Sometimes I kind of work backwards, where like it'll literally just be me writing something down, and I'll just start shooting it. And usually images, like I'll just start shooting photographs, I'll do setups. And, but other times we're like, with this, it was very fragmented. It was kind of like, oh, I have, and the film itself as a whole was very much kind of like an assortment of different locations. And which I realize now that I think about it, a lot of my films end up being that way, not intentionally, but the process does change. But the most important part of the process is I spent a lot of time thinking about it, just kind of privately. And even when I'm actually watching another movie that has nothing to do with that, particularly if the movie's bad, and when I was about 9 or 10, in that same notebook I was telling you all about, I remember seeing Batman and Robin, the famous film with George Clooney where he plays Batman, and it was famously bad. And it was so bad he was literally bumping into people on the street and he was paying them, they're giving them their money back. They would say, oh, that movie sucked. And he was like, okay, here's $20. I'm sorry that you spent money on that ticket. George Clooney was doing that in the 90s. It was really fascinating. He probably went broke doing that too, by the way, because so many people hated it. But I remember seeing that, and I didn't hate it, but I thought, this is what I would do differently. And I wrote a whole script, which was 10 pages. And in my mind, it was like a whole script about what that movie would be. And it was like all this different stuff about like, it was set in New York City. I took Gotham out, and like I kept Mr. Freeze. I think I got rid of Poison Ivy because I didn't understand the sexual nature of that character as a kid. I was kind of like, what is she doing here? I didn't get any of like the innuendos of the sexual, that character. I'm just kind of like, that's weird. Why was she talking to him like that? I still feel that way actually. So I don't really get any of those jokes. But it was a whole different movie. And in my mind, I saw something and I was working something out in my head at the exact same time. And it was so bad, and I had such a great experience, seeing it, I went back and saw it again. So I saw it with my mom first, and then I went and saw it with my dad, which was normally the routine as a kid. It was like, I can get 2 for 1, because they don't hang out with each other. So it's kind of like, I can go see Ninja Turtles with my dad and then see it again with my mom. But even when I saw a bad movie, it was still kind of like, okay, well, I can kind of work this out in my head. And back then, you couldn't just like look up a clip on YouTube or something. You couldn't you had to go to the theater, you had to go to the cinema, and I would go back and see it again. To the point actually where like when I got older, I would sneak into movies because I just didn't have the money to go. So for like most of my teenage years, I was sneaking into movies, like with my friends, very like, it's a low level crime, I'm sure, the usher kind of sees you like, okay, whatever, like they're not like running to stop you or anything like that. Most of the time the ushers were other teenagers. But the full answer to your question is like, the only process that really has remained, that is the consistent ritual, is seeing other movies. Because the art form gets me excited about it. And even as a kid, when I'm looking at that and I'm saying I have my own idea of what it should be, even in that moment, it's not really that it's bad. It's that it's making me feel a certain type of way. And even that bad movie excites me about the art form because I'm creating based on what I've just seen, right? I remember seeing The Matrix when I was 13, and that's a good movie. And that got me excited about doing my own things. Like when I saw The Matrix, I remember that they so well, like I came home from school, 3 o'clock Wednesday. My mother, who normally would work late hours, she comes in right after me. And I'm like, you're here when the sun's out, this is insane. And she goes, I actually took the day off work today and I went to the movies by myself. And I saw this movie and you gotta come back and see it with me. So she just left the movies and then came home to pick me up to take me to the movies. We went and it was The Matrix and I was just absolutely blown away. And she was like, that was great, right? I was like, fuck yeah, can we go again? But that just made me, just thinking of that experience of going to the movies had all these ideas just kind of going off in my head about other things that I wanted to do. And mind you, my movies look nothing like The Matrix, which thank God, because nobody can really achieve that level. To this day, people are still copying the bullet time and stuff, and they look awful. Even the reason why you see the X-Men, the very first X-Men movie, they're wearing all black leather because of The Matrix. That movie was so successful that every studio changed course. When they were doing pre-production on the X-Men, the first one with Bryan Singer, they were trying to figure out how do we get these colorful costumes from the comic books on the big screen. Matrix comes out and they're like, we got it. All black leather. And of course that movie was a huge success. It doesn't look as cool as The Matrix, but that movie excited people in a certain way that they just want to move the art form forward. And even with me, with my little stuff that 30 of my friends see it and my mom says it's great, it's still exciting me as well. And that's the process, is really just seeing other movies. So, yeah. Anna?
You have a lot of, you said a lot of ideas. When do you pull the trigger? Like, how do you decide which ones to pursue? Which ones
I'm
to
like,
pursue?
full trigger. Like, you know, like, when do I stop the ideas from coming? Oh god. No, I'm kidding. I usually start immediately. Like, I mean, I think about things a lot, but I start very quickly because I get so excited about it. And if it's my own thing, you know, the biggest problem for me actually is working on my friends' projects. Like when I'm in LA or something and they're all like, oh, I was working on this thing, let's come by and help us out or whatever. And you know, you can play a part, you do this. And that stuff is great, but then they stall. And they're like, okay, well, that's a wrap for today. And then we'll come back in like a week when we're all available for, because everybody's different jobs and their schedule's all different. And I'm like, let's do it right now, you know, like, and they're like, we have to go to work. So, that to me is hard. There's one project in particular that I think is just absolute gold. And I've been trying to help my friends develop it larger. It's a short film that they made, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm just like, this is something that is, everyone would think it's funny, everyone would love it, and they're like, we just can't get the money for it. A longer picture would be, you know, get everybody's schedules right and everybody, you know. And that's the thing about being in LA too, that I said earlier that I don't like, is that you get caught up in the economic problems that you have, which is just the way of life. Like, you have all these talented people, all these great ideas, and they can't do it because they have to go back to their second shift at their other job, at their other thing, and then you end up missing an audition or something, or you can't have time for this, and you know, like, you know, we can cut the money issue. Like, I can find a way around the money. We can get hands on deck, but time is so valuable, and they just sometimes just can't give the time, and it just really sucks, you know. But when I'm in Orlando, you know, the busiest person I knew was Anna. Everybody else is like twiddling their thumbs. They're like, all right, let's get to work, Ricardo. And I'm like, come on over, we'll shoot this thing. And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And then my thing is done in like a day. However, though, I have, let me go back to this. Sorry, this is not just a photo album of me again. I've been struggling with this picture again because it's a very unique experience. Like I've worked on like documentary type content for like other companies, but I've never made my own film that's a documentary. And this is the first time where I've thought about, I'm really concerned about what the audience thinks. This is the first time where I'm not thinking about my own expression. Like, the subject matter is so important and so meaningful to so many people that know the subject, that how do I get this right? And I've spent so much time on this. I mean, the movie takes place in one day, and I shot it a year ago, and I'm still mulling over it, even in this moment. I mean, I'm cutting it together, but I'm just mulling over, like, you know, minor tweaks can make a difference. Like, you cut Mrs. Doubtfire differently, and that's a horror movie. You know, like that's, you know, that kid walks in and he's like, Dad, what the, you know, and it's like, everything is different, you know, like, and he's been lying to her this whole time. Like, are you kidding me? Like, she was pretty forgiving if you think about that. Like, she let him see the kids afterwards. The end of the movie is, oh, we work out a deal, and then he can see the kids now. He's just been lying to you for like 5 months and pretending to be a stranger in your house. That's fucking weird. But yeah, this is something that I just want to make sure that I get it right for other people. And it's nice because it's also the first, in thinking about it right now, it's the first time I've made a movie without ego, where I'm not thinking about myself. I'm concerned about everyone else, you know, and the impact that it could have. And all of my movies are about myself, even when other people are playing a character like me or something like that. You know, like you look at a Woody Allen movie and like, even when he like casts Jason Biggs or something, or Owen Wilson or whatever, they're still playing the Woody Allen character, you know, like they're playing that person. Midnight in Paris, or, you know, I forgot the other one with Jason Biggs, but you know, you get the point. With me, it's the same thing. I mean, the feelings and ideas are all over the place, but there's always a character that like is my perspective. And right now, the perspective on this film is not a character in the movie, it's a character outside of the movie. It's the camera. The camera is the perspective. And that is challenging because although I've done that for like video content and for nonprofits and I've never done it for like cinema. And this is cinema to me. Like, even if it ends up being only 15 minutes long, it's still cinema, you know. It's not the internet. It's this is the big screen. So just be prepared. So yes.
Kind of speaking on a point you made earlier about art is powerful, and then talking about your audience and how you have to care about what your audience sees when it comes to good deeds. I've been a government worker for 10 years, and I have felt, and I feel like I'm a creative, as in like I like to really write, and I study my craft a lot, and I have a lot to say, and I think a lot of public education is needed in that space, but I often feel paralyzed by being able to talk, because once I talk on social media or make the videos, it's out in public forever. and it could impact state funding for my government or something of that nature. And I always am, and it's paralyzed me because I'm like, oh, like, can I get the $15 million grant, or do I like just keep my mouth shut, right? And it just feels like this balance that I'm always like influxing in between of like wanting to be a creative, wanting to tell the world what I know, what I think they deserve to know, but also in the background trying to be able to have implementation happen and things. Do you have any advice as far as like, you know, when you were working on that, thinking about your audience, thinking about how all these things can be perceived, how did you kind of work through that? And honestly, like, how did you just like, you're just going to execute it one day, right? Like,
Yeah.
So.
And one day I'm just gonna pull the trigger.
Yeah.
It's gonna gotta go. Yeah, gotta go. I reserve the option of telling you how to respond in that way, because that's a tricky thing to navigate. But I will say this: art has been at the center of every social movement since there were social movements, right? Because of its power. This is, again, going back to this image, the church knew the power of art, and they used it very efficiently, right? It remains, and people still believe in this particular faith, and it's an image that still matters to us to this day, even for those who are non-believers or for those who may be atheists or agnostic. It's very powerful, and this image as well is very, very powerful. Again, this was a throwaway image in the war. This wasn't really something that was like everybody talked about. It just was like a flyer on a wall somewhere. It wasn't really until I think in the 70s, at the beginning of the kind of like second wave feminist movement, where it was kind of like brought up back up into the forefront, and now it's become this iconic image. People are wearing their, costumes, Rosie Riveter costumes, things of that nature. But again, I would say that, and hopefully this steers you in the right direction, I would say when I think about the role that art plays, I would use it as best I can. I don't think necessarily, that's a tough question, yeah, because I don't have that role in life, but I mean, obviously, in honest case, I definitely can be concerned about it. And maybe you guys can talk after, maybe she probably has some insight to that as an elected official. But I don't know, it's a tough thing to navigate. And I don't want to tell somebody to go full throttle and then they lose their job, you don't want to change your livelihood. It's not as easy to get a job as people think it is, just get a job. No, it's actually really hard, even for people that are very accomplished and have all kinds of degrees. It's very challenging. But yeah, art has been at the center of every social movement, and it contains a lot of power. And there was a conversation I was had recently about the new movie Twisters. Have you guys seen the sequel to Twister? And the director was asked during the presser, why didn't they mention climate change in the movie? Because in the movie, the Twisters are out of control. There's like a whole week where that's a real thing that happens. There's a period of time where like there's an alley in the Midwest where it's just like they're like nonstop. I believe it's Nebraska, I think, Oklahoma, yeah. And he said, well, I don't think movies should be preaching to you. And I remember like just being I love this director, by the way. His first movie, Minari, is one of my favorite movies of all time. Just beautiful movie. Like, I mean, you're just in tears throughout the entire thing. So I was really excited to see that he was making Twisters, but I was really hurt by that comment that he made, because there's a difference between, I think what he was doing, this is what he was doing as a now a big name director, is navigating the audience. The audience for Twister is male dominated. There's a huge, huge conservative leaning audience for that particular film because of the setting in the Midwest. So I think that he was trying to strategically navigate, not saying that we don't want to push climate change on people that may not believe in it. We just want to make a movie that's good. And maybe if you watch the movie, maybe you'll think, well, maybe what's causing these tornadoes to happen so frequently? So I think he was trying to intelligently navigate that scenario, which might help you in the future. However, I think he was absolutely wrong. I think even if you're not intentionally trying to say a message, you are saying something. If you have nothing to say, then what's the point of making a movie? What's the point of this image if there's nothing to say? What do? You just kind of aimlessly draw? Even if you're just aimlessly drawing, there's something coming out of you. And it goes back to a larger question, which this image kind of is meant to push down, but that's a separate conversation. I don't want to push anybody's faith or anything like that. But is the world made or is the world grown? Now in the West, because of particularly powerful religions, people think that the world is made, right? Even in a republic, we all live in a democracy, right? We all kind of still think of the world as being something that's made, things around us as being made, people are being made. And it comes from this image that there's the idea that like there's a glob of clay and someone came along and molded that clay, right? From the outside working its way in, like a sculptor. But if you think of something that's grown, which is almost everything we see in society, that's not the case. Things work from the inside out. So again, it's a tough thing to navigate, and I think that he was wrong when he said that. Like, I wouldn't tell you what my movies mean, but there is something I'm trying to say. There's something that I'm like eager to get out of me. And I heard Scorsese say this a while ago. He's like, what's the point of making a movie if you're not trying to like, if you're not excited about it? Like if you're not, he doesn't write most of his own scripts. Most of his scripts come from somebody else and he like tweaks them a little bit, but like he still has something to say based on what he's seen. And he's like, I'm eager to make this thing. I mean, he worked on Gangs of New York for like 30 years or something like that. Like he thought of the idea, I think in the late 70s. And he said, even before that, as a kid, he said, I used to think, why does this look a certain way? He was asking himself questions. Why does this look a certain way? Why does the 5 points, why is there so much crime here? Why are there so many gangs here? And that idea, that feeling was inside of him before he even saw that script from somebody else. So there is something that we're trying to say, regardless of what the piece is. Now, it can be something that's contrived, where somebody says, I want you to paint this. But even then, Michelangelo had something to say. You don't work on something for 10 years and have nothing to say, or whatever the fuck years it was, you know. So I hope this helps you navigate that there is something to say and that it should be said. I'm never concerned about what will happen to me if I say something. I'm concerned about the kind of person I'll become if I don't. So I think we have time, maybe one more. I think we're kind of running low on time. Yes, just to be respectful of you all's time, I think we can take one.
Is there one more question? Yeah.
I'll take, yeah.
When making art or doing film, what are some exercises you recommend to practice?
Well, I'm very big on exercising, just in a general sense. I mean, as I showed you, when that part of the athleticism has remained inside of me, even though I don't compete anymore. I definitely feel better when I exercise. There was a period during the pandemic where I was kind of like, you know, I joke about just Netflix and chilling for a little too long because it was like, what else is there to do? But the reality is that like, I was changing in that period and I didn't like the physical change. It didn't make me very happy, but it also changed my mood. Like, I am excited to wake up in the morning. Like, my friends are like, why do you wake up so early? I'm like, to work out before I do things. Because if I try to push it to the end of the day, it may not get done. What if you get caught up doing something else or, you know, whatever? I always do the workouts in the morning and that helps me. Even when I shoot the image of these two events were out of town. And I remember being in the hotel and getting up at like 4 in the morning to go to the hotel gym and just like working out for an hour and a half. And then when I leave the gym, shower, get breakfast, then everybody, all the other friends are waking up, you know, and so I'm like, you gotta do it in the morning, man. Because once you get this day started and I start partying and drinking and get on stage and make a bunch of inappropriate jokes, there's no time to do it. But because of the pandemic, that structure subsided. So when I had nothing to do during the day, doing nothing, it's like, well, then what's the point of doing anything, you know? And then you have this kind of existential crisis on like your entire schedule. So I would recommend whatever the workout is, do it in the morning. You will feel better. And I mean, there's certain like cognitive benefits, obviously, to just physical activity. You know, I was reading about the Japanese woman who's the oldest woman in the world right now, 116 years old. And there's a quote from her that says, even in her 80s, she was still like hiking up huge mountains in Japan or whatever. You know, like, that's insane. Like, in America, like 80, you're like out the door, you know, like, but, which shouldn't be the case, by the way, I'm not ageist, so, but yeah, I mean, I think that the physical activity is very important, and I do a lot of thinking when I'm working out, and a lot of my ideas are born when I'm just able to kind of like not be around the day and not be around people. That helps a lot. But were you looking for like more like specific techniques?
Like, yeah, like small things like, when, I don't know, if sometimes like practice like, oh, different shots, or like, you know, like.
No, doing the thing is the practice, just doing it. Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I started very young, so I probably did that back then. Like, I used to be really like geeking out about the tech back then when I was young. And I'd be like, oh, that's the coolest camera. This person's got the high 8 camera, that one's got the Super 8 camera and this thing. And actually, if you want to talk to somebody about cameras, Jim is the camera guy. He has a lot of, he's the adult geek that knows all that stuff. But for me, it was more so like, I was also like that with guitars too when I was a kid. I was just kind of like, I wanted to get this guitar, that guitar. And I realized that like, that just wasn't my role. My role was just more about how things made me feel. And I heard this quote from John Lennon where he said, if you give me a cardboard box, I'll make you a song, in reference to like not having an instrument or something. Like it'll come out of me. It's gonna happen. And when I started to realize that, the process became a lot easier, because I used to be kind of hamstringed by like, oh, well, I don't have this right program, or, this thing. And it's like, well, the program doesn't make anything. The program is just the tool. I'm making the stuff, like it's growing out of me, So, and I hope that helps a little bit. And I will say this one last note: everybody has their own process, right? There are people that do that kind of thing, that practice, different techniques and stuff. It's just not what works for me. And again, it's because I probably did it a lot when I was a kid. And now it's just kind of like second nature. It's just like driving. So, which I'm very good at, by the way. So I'm a very good driver.
All right, on that note, thank you.